Welcome back to Drunk on Writing. I'm your host, Warren Pawlowski, and in this episode, brought to you in part through the patronage of Ariya Norinth, I am reacting to The Last of Us Part 2, because I am not happy. No, this isn't about the recent, beautiful, brutal trailer, but rather the lack of any multiplayer component, particularly factions. Now, when this news broke, I happened to see a bunch of people reacting, particularly on Twitter, in response to this news breaking. They reacted with the same kind of gripe that you would expect. It's like, oh, thank God, we don't need this tacked on multiplayer mode anyway. Who needs this? Great, this is awesome. Better for you to focus on the single player campaign. Well, to be frank, if you reacted that way, you're wrong. Sorry to say it, but you obviously did not play Factions. And if you did, you didn't play it enough, because Factions is something else. And you just done messed up, because Factions might just be the best multiplayer I've ever played. And this is coming from someone who is a diehard Halo multiplayer. I played Halo for years. I loved the Halo multiplayer, and that kind of defined the console multiplayer generation for quite some time. But yeah, The Last of Us it was so fresh, so unique, just something completely else. And I'm going to get into it in a second, but before we do get further, I just want to acknowledge the fact that Naughty Dog, the developer of The Last of Us and obviously Factions and Uncharted and Crash Bandicoot and Jak and Daxter, they released a statement on this, a statement that we'll come back to later. But before I actually get a little bit further, what is Factions? Like, why is it a big deal that Factions is not being included with The Last of Us Part 2? Well, Factions is a multiplayer mode that puts you in the camp of one of two groups from the first Last of Us campaign, the Fireflies and the Hunters. And you sort of battle it out over territory. It's a lot more complicated than that. I'll get into it in a second, but in a gist, that's pretty much the gist of it. You know, you're two factions fighting each other. Here's how the game puts it. The best and only way to survive is to take the lives of those that seek to take yours. Whether you side with the Fireflies or the Hunters means little. What matters is how hard you try to keep your clan healthy and strong by securing supplies and making it back. On the surface level, put that way, the game mode's rather simple. Like, kill, conquer, and gather. And the combat is pretty much exactly what you'd expect from The Last of Us. It's third person with the usual gunfights and crafting. But the gameplay, and specifically its rubber banding, which kind of led to some of the most intense online multiplayer battles I've ever been, as Molotovs are flying and machetes are swinging and armor's chipping and everybody's just running and gunning, and it's so good. It's kind of compounded with the fact that the controls aren't that great. It's sort of like this Resident Evil sort of effect on it that makes it so much more endearing. It is so ridiculously fun, but none of that is why I truly love Factions. Why I had to force myself to stop playing. No, not just because I was spending far too much time with them. I mean, this wasn't, Final Fantasy XI. It wasn't WoW for those of you out there who play WoW. And, that one's still supported, so it's like a constant addiction. I get it. It sucks. Yeah, I guess I kind of was playing it a little bit. But no. I had to stop playing Factions because it was stressing me out more than anything else in my life. And that's saying quite a bit. Let me take a quick step back here for a second. Factions for me started out with trophy hunting. Now, sorry, I'm going to get a bit more nerdy here than I usually do. Even nerdier than just talking about The Last of Us in the first place. In the original PS3 game, there were 4 trophies, I believe, associated to the online multiplayer mode. And trophies, if you don't understand, is the sort of meta game within the PlayStation ecosystem. You gather trophies, you increase levels. It's sort of a way to show concretely that you have completed a game and its objectives. But anyways, in The Last of Us, there are these 4 trophies, and 2 of them are gold trophies. And once I fell in love with The Last of Us, and The Last of Us, as of right now, I think is my second favorite game of all time. It was my favorite game of all time for quite a while. Before that was Halo. But it was. Now it's my second. And when that happened, for the record, God of War 2018 is my new favorite. It's a fantastic game. But once I fell in love with The Last of Us, I needed every single one of those trophies. As you do. Such a seemingly innocent start, right? But I got hooked. That first time I ran out of the spawn, just followed up at my teammates, ran after that cache, ducked down, opened it up, got a couple of crafting items, put together a spike bomb, a nail bomb, whatever you want to call it. I forget the actual naming of it, but I got that, and then I ran and to the next one. I think the one of the first matches I played was in the school, and I ran up the stairs, and I got up to the other one up there, and I started opening that one. I started crafting something else, probably like a smoke bomb or something, or maybe I gathered some ammo, and then I started getting sniped at, and somebody's shooting at me, and they're shooting at me with like a bow and arrow, and you hear that nice little dull funk. It was just insane. And this just keeps happening. The entire game, the entire playthrough, just as one level, and you're fighting back and forth, trying to craft something, trying to get a little bit better. Every time you succeed a little bit more, and maybe you sneak, or maybe you get the perk where people can't see that you're sneaking around, and you're silent, and you're quiet, and they don't see you at all. And then maybe you have extra armor, maybe you have extra ammo. And, your whole goal here is to outlive, is to endure and survive, right? And one more, the meta narrative builds on what was established within The Last of Us. You're playing these two sides, one side or the other. You stick with this one side for a period of time, and you're building a clan. You're trying to help them survive. It's his own sort of story. It's a subtle storyline, told mostly through still images and little text affairs, but a storyline nonetheless that is very easy to get involved in. Every time you play, it's basically a mini campaign. See if you and your people can survive. Simple as that. And to get these trophies, by the way, it wasn't exactly easy. There was 2 of them were gold trophies. And to get each one, you had to join one side and then join the other side and survive until the end of the campaign. In game, that was 12 weeks. Each game counts as a single day. So that's 84? I feel like I did that math right. I think it's 84 matches. Hopefully I'm right. But I think it was 84. And yeah, I did that. I got that. I got that on the PS3 version, and I believe I have that on the PS4 version now as well. And it got to a point where I played it so much that I started to feel acutely responsible for these people, for these clan members. Going into every game, I knew exactly how many parts I needed to gather in order to feed them, to clothe them, to bathe them, to keep them populated, to attract new people, to fend off attacks on our base. I knew what I had to do, and when I didn't do well enough, whether it was my team letting me down somehow, which would inevitably lead me to yelling at the TV, or if it was just me and I was just somehow I was not doing well that game, I would get so distraught, so upset, because I knew that coming out of that game, my people would be hungry. My people would be starving. My people would be sick. some of my people might die. And these weren't just random NPCs, mind you might have seen a note recently on the PlayStation talking about how Facebook integration was going away, and they actually cut it. But when The Last of Us originally came out, Facebook integration was at the height of Facebook integration. And what you could do with The Last of Us is import your friends list into your clans. So between matches, I would get updates like Nicole is tending the garden, or Michael is mending the fences, or Siobhan is, contemplating cannibalism. Stuff like that. These are real life friends in a survivor state. Again, just through text, just kind of through my imagination, but I was kind of living through it, and I was their leader, and I had to help them. And if you managed to fend off an attack, now some of the attacks, you were guaranteed to lose people. And no matter how many parts you gather, you were guaranteed to lose people. But if you gathered enough parts, a smaller percentage of your people would die. And at the end of each one of those attacks, you would have to choose who would survive. And it's not like they went away afterwards. It's not like, oh yeah, they're dead, we're gonna, not worry about them anymore. Within the game, every single person who dies is represented by a unmovable gray dot on your little radar map. It just sits there because it's a dead body. They added up. Trust me on that one. I remember this one playthrough. I randomly decided that this kid that I knew in grammar school would survive, Timothy, and I don't know why. I hadn't seen him since grammar school, but I was like, I want Timothy to survive this one. And so, whenever an event came up, his name would pop up, and I'd be like, no, not choosing him, I'm choosing someone else. If it popped up that he was hungry, I'd be like, I gotta buckle down, I got this, I gotta do this. And he survived. He endured. He became like my imaginary right-hand man in these matches. And I went the whole season with him until the second to last match. And I lost, and I let him down, and he was killed. And I was honestly so devastated that I nearly quit the game. Legit, like, just thinking about it, I'm kind of choking up here, but of course Timothy in real life was completely fine. I haven't talked to him in years. If an actual zombie apocalypse or some such broke out, I wouldn't have any contact with him. I probably wouldn't even recognize him if I ran into him in the streets. And this was all just a bunch of randomly generated text messages. And man, it's kind of amazing thinking about this relatively simple multiplayer mode where it's all about just gathering bullets, gathering nails, gathering powder, and creating materials, and hiding out under like benches and behind shelves. But really considering like real serious sort of life and death scenarios, like that's extremely abnormal for a multiplayer game to sort of stir that sort of emotional resonance. But that's what The Last of Us factions did, at least for me. And so yeah, I mean, I'm pretty bummed that it's not going to appear in The Last of Us Part 2. In fact, it was one of the main things I was looking forward to in that game. I kept waiting and waiting for Naughty Dog to supply some information on it, to talk about it, to tease it in a trailer, because I know I'm not alone in this. At least I hope I'm not alone in this. I've heard some other people talk about it. I hear a lot more people put it down, but it did something different, and I don't know. It's not going to be there, and it's going to be very different. It's going to be a very different experience. But there is hope, right? Because back to that statement that I mentioned earlier, the one that Naughty Dog released. Here's part of it, and just to me, the important part. As development began on the evolution of our factions mode from The Last of Us Part 1, the vision of the team grew beyond an additional mode that could be included with our enormous single-player campaign. Wanting to support both visions, we made the difficult choice that The Last of Us Part 2 would not include an online mode. However, you will eventually experience the fruits of our team's online ambition, but not as part of The Last of Us Part 2. When and where it will be realized is still to be determined. But rest assured, we are as big a fan of factions as the rest of our community and are excited to share more when it's ready. So, it's coming! Eventually. Somewhere, somehow, someplace, someone. We really don't know anything. I mean, is it a standalone multiplayer game? Is it a free-to-play multiplayer game? Is it pay-to-play multiplayer game? Is it still tied into The Last of Us? Or is it its own complete random thing? Is it sort of the Apex Legends to The Last of Us's Titanfall? You know, is it something like that? Is it something completely new built on what came before? I mean, I think if they build on what I've talked about so far today, I'm there. I am playing. I don't care what it is. I am in. That's saying a lot, because I don't play that much multiplayer outside of Fortnite at this point. That's on the wane, too, because, you know, people have been dropping off. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? That seems so far down the line. I mean, The Last of Us Part 2 is coming out in the spring. This multiplayer mode, is that going to be a launch title for the PS5? Is that going to be something even later than that? We can only sort of guess at this point. But what is here, what is present, what is for real, what we know for sure is that The Last of Us Part 1, including Factions mode, is included right now for all PlayStation Plus members. It's free if you have PlayStation Plus. I know that's not actually free, but if you subscribe to PlayStation Plus, you can download that sucker right now, or at least until the end of October if you're watching this after that point. And I highly recommend that you do so. And if you've never played Factions, pop in and try out a couple matches. Don't, you know, it might be a little difficult at first, but you get the hang of it. And you're going to get the swing of it. And you're gonna grab one of those machetes and you're gonna get one of those graphics and it's gonna be brutal. And you're gonna be like, yes! And you're gonna get out of it and your clan's gonna grow. And then you're gonna get attacked. And your clan's gonna partially die. But it will be okay. If you are playing, hit me up. I am playing. I've been playing quite a lot of late. You can hit me up on PSN at Myakoopa, Myakoopa. And I'll probably be playing off and on over the next couple of months, but if you hit me up, want to play, I will be there. Yes. Yes. Yes, I will. And my one point of advice, if the dam comes up, pick that choice. Seriously, you won't regret it. I love that map. This has been Drunk on Writing Reacts to the lack of and the future of the multiplayer mode Factions from The Last of Us Part 2. Remember all the fun stuff that I usually mention about Drunk on Writing. If you enjoy this episode, please give it a thumbs up. Please leave a comment below. Please subscribe to the channel. And, head on over to drunkonwriting.com for all the rest of the goodies. And to, support the channel. Did I say channel? I felt like I'm not sure if I said channel there. Might have just kind of go, channel. Channel. As always, cheers. I have nothing to cheers with, but cheers. And keep on riding.